After this week's vice presidential debate and last week's presidential debate debacle, people are pondering whether the whole process is worth it. It's a huge undertaking for both the Presidential Debate Commission and the media, and frankly, the payoff to the public has been marginal at best. Unlike last week's presidential debate,
I hate to raise my voice, but I see it seems to be, why should I be different than the two of you?
This week's vice presidential debate between Mike Pence and Kamala Harris struck a civil tone, mostly.
Thank you.
Joe Biden wants us to retrofit 4 million American businesses.
But all those polite little thank yous disguised a bigger issue. Vice President Pence was regularly going over his allotted time, and like President Trump, frequently interrupting his opponent.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I'm
speaking.
Feel the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. If you don't mind letting me finish.
And there was another bigger issue. Candidates refusing to answer the questions, including an important one about presidential disability.
Well, Susan, thank you, although I would like to go back.
I think we need to move on to the issue.
But I would like to go back.
And when asked why she didn't press the candidates for an answer on presidential disability, moderator Susan Page said she didn't think it was her place.
Whereas in a news conference or an interview, I would have followed up and said, you didn't answer my question. That was not, I thought, the appropriate thing to do in a debate.
With those two debates behind us, though, we now face another crisis. Will there be a next debate now that the commission is proposing it go virtual?
No, I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate.
The president's refusal to debate is just, dare I say it, one more fly in the ointment. I got to say, Mike, the last thing you want is to have a whole discussion about a vice presidential debate to be about a fly that, appeared for about 25 seconds. And that's what it sort of came down to. I mean, obviously it didn't move anybody, but a lot of the same problems arose this week that arose last week, including the moderator. That she lost control of it as well. Didn't follow up. I didn't really follow her logic and why she felt like she couldn't interrupt, other than the fact that she had said she wasn't going to interrupt. But they said that they were going to follow the rules too. So I know the whole thing. The League of Women Voters got out of this business in 1992. The Presidential Debate Commission was born, but now they've lost control as well.
Well, it seems they have, and I couldn't turn away from the fly when the fly appeared. And social media went crazy with the fly and Stephen King saying the fly knows. I personally still like debates. I hope they have at least one more debate. I find debates to be valuable. I find debates, particularly with these two candidates, an opportunity for voters to see their mental abilities, their abilities to distill information, talk on their feet, and go head to head. I still think with two guys in their 70s, there's value to that. I thought that the moderator, I agree with you. I thought that she did a poor job. I've been there before. It's very difficult knowing when to let things go, when to cut things off, with a producer yelling in your ear the entire time. We're done with climate change. We're onto this thing. Move on. Stop them. Shut them up. But that kind of thing, you have to know when to move on. You have to know when to follow up. I disagree with her. I think it's more than a news conference. When Mike Pence doesn't respond to a question directly about whether or not they're going to go for a peaceful transfer of power, or she won't respond to a question about packing the court, they've got to follow up. And you got to say, answer the question.
I agree with that. I think it was interesting. I agree that when they don't answer the question, that is telling. But if it's telling, underscore it by pointing out they didn't answer the question. I also think there's still value to a debate. I think that Susan did a better job with this one, largely because the candidates themselves were actually debating. They weren't just arguing and fighting. But I think we've gotten, over the last few years, last few election cycles, we've gotten used to looking at the debates as infotainment. We want to see who sucker punches someone else. We want to see, we want to see who loses their lid. We want to see who really freaks out. And we blame the moderators for not being like parents. They're not there to break up fights. They're not there to send people to their corners. The contestants, that's how it feels, like a game show. Yes. But the participants agree to the rules, and I agree with Susan. She is there to enforce them. She really isn't there to punish or to fact check in real time. Unfortunately, I do think the debates need some sort of strengthening of the rules in order to work with these particular candidates.
I guess I have a different conception of a moderator's role than Lylah does. Very different, actually. I think it is absolutely the moderator's place to make the candidates answer the question and to fact check in real time. And I would add, if a candidate doesn't answer a question like will you commit to a peaceful transfer of power if the president loses? You got to follow up when they have raised this enormous question, as opposed to then asking a question conveyed by I believe, an elementary school kid. To me, that's just journalistic malpractice. I think these debates still have value. In that first, I was about to use the, let's say, a bleep show of a presidential debate. What voters saw is the state of mind of the man who's currently running the country and wants to run it for 4 more years. That in itself, as hard as it may have been to watch, has value. But I would say get moderators like Jonathan Swan of Axios, who are capable of pressing people when they don't answer a question, fact-checking real time, and also give moderators the ability to cut the mic if people are running over or ignoring their directions, and then let them use it.
So what I found, I've never done a candidate debate like that, but I've done many other candidates debate. When you articulate the rules and then you say them again and they break them, you have the audience on your side. So you actually have the power, if you're feeling like it's not appropriate, to say, the power of the people watching, you did not answer the question. That is not what I said. Your time is up. Now, I will admit that this is a different situation just because of the way that the way that we're living now and COVID-19, which makes these debates even more important. People were really paying attention, even if they're very, very divided. They wanted to hear from both candidates, whether it be, the latest gaffe or really some information. And people were frustrated by that first presidential debate where they got no information because it was all yelling back and forth. So the moderator does have a role, and you have to be strong, but I do think they should have the ability to cut the mic. And I do think that the Presidential Commission should revamp how they're doing it in general. And I think the virtual convention suggestion is a good one.
Callie, I couldn't agree with you more. And the moderator has more leeway. The Presidential Debate Commission isn't in her ear telling her what to do. She could have done anything she wanted and done it just as you suggested professionally. She had the authority.